which is just one way to measure power. And today we're going to learn another method for measuring power in a weighted voting system. So first, some vocabulary. So last class we talked about coalitions and winning coalitions and losing coalitions. This class we're going to talk about a sequential coalition. So a sequential coalition is a team where the order matters. Okay? So player 1, player 2, player 3 is a sequential coalition. And we're going to use a different kind of bracket than we used when we were doing the other ones, just to keep it straight which is which. So order matters in a sequential coalition, where player 1, player 2, player 3 is a different coalition from, say, player 2, player 3, player 1. When you put them in different orders, the team is actually different. So before, a team was a team was a team, didn't matter the order. Now the order is going to matter. All right, so the question is, how many sequential coalitions are there? We didn't have an easy way to figure out how many winning coalitions there were in the last one, but here we're going to see if we can come up with a way to figure out how many there are. So let's see, if we have one player, so I'm going to make a little table here. Number of players, number of coalitions, number of sequential coalitions. Okay. So if you have one player, how many teams can you make? One. There's only one order, right? Now, if you have two players, say A and B, how many teams can you make if order matters? Two. A, B, or B, A. So, well, there aren't too many. I'll list them so we can see what we're doing here. A, and this would be A, B, and B, A. All right, so for 3 players, we'll try to list them. We'll have A, B, C. What else? A, C, B. Okay, so this is good. So all the coalitions that start with A, right? We'll have A, then B, then C, or A, then C, then B. Okay, then we'll list the coalitions that start with B. So we could have B, A, C, or B, C, A. And then list coalitions that start with C. If we start with C, we could have A, B next, or B, A. A, B, C, A, C, B. So that makes 6 coalitions. Okay. 4 players. Why do you think 8? Guessing? Okay. 6, 12, 16. Why do you think it's 12? Square. Well, 3 squared would have been 9, so that's not the pattern. But maybe there could be a pattern. So rather than trying to write them all down, because we could start trying to write them, right? We could say, well, A, B, C, D, right? And then we could have A, B, D, C. So those are all my A, B coalitions. And I could have A, C coalitions. B, D, D, B. Could have A, D coalitions. A, D, C, B. So those are all my coalitions that start with A. Right. Okay, 4, 5, 6. So there's going to be 24, right? Because I have 6 that start with A, I'll have 6 that start with B, I'll have 6 that start with C, and 6 that start with D. So there'll be 24. All right, so let's think about, look at this table. Think about it real hard. Stare at it. Can we come up with a pattern? 120. How'd you get that? Oh, okay. So to get from 1 to 2, you say, well, that was a multiplication by 2. To get from 2 to 6, that's a multiplication by 3. To get from 6 to 24, that's times 4. So times 2, times 3, times 4, we'll guess that this next one would be times 5. And 24 times 5 is 120. That is, in fact, correct. Yep. I don't, he just noticed it. There's another pattern, another way we might have seen it. 1 times 2 is 2. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 4 is 24. 24 times 5 is 120. All right, so I'm going to start the table over again, and I'm going to organize it in an efficient way so that we can try to come up with a pattern if I were to put like an n there for n players. Okay, so we've got number of players, number of coalitions, so 1 player, 1 coalition. 2 players, I started with this 1 coalition and I multiplied by 2, right? So this is 1 times 2. For 3 players, we take these 2 and we multiply by 3. But instead of writing this as 2, I'm going to write it as 1 times 2. I'm not going to actually do the calculation. So this becomes 1 times 2 times 3. And then for 4 players, this is 6, right? And in the previous table, we said, well, we do 6 times 4 is 24. But I'm not going to actually do the multiplication. I'm going to leave the 6 written as 1 times 2 times 3, and then multiply it by 4. Right, so I could put in the numbers. This is 1, 2, 6, 24. And then for 5, in the previous table, we saw that the pattern was take the 24, multiply by the 5, you get 120. But instead of writing 24, I'm going to write it as 1 times 2 times 3 times 4 times 5. Why do you think we're doing it that way? Yeah. So we're trying to come up with a formula. So I'm trying to have a pattern. I want a pattern to emerge, right? So for 1 player is 1 coalition. 2 players, 1 times 2. 3 players, 1 times 2 times 3. 4 players, 1 times 2 times 3 times 4. 5 players, 1 times 2 times 3 times 4 times 5. How many do you think there would be for, say, 9 players? Yeah. We call this factorial, and we write it with an exclamation point. So you write 9 exclamation point. That means 1 times 2 times 3 times 4 times 5 times 6 times 7 times 8 times 9. And you read it as 9 factorial. I wanted you to discover it. So if there are n players, right, then there would be n factorial sequential coalitions, which just means 1 times 2 times 3 up to n. Cool, right? Uh-huh. Some calculators have a button. Like if you turn it sideways, yeah, it'll have a scientific calculator. Mm-hmm. Okay, so in the previous method, the Banzhaf power index, we talked about critical players. In this method, we're going to have a new term called a pivotal player. And a pivotal player is the player who, so we're going to think of sequential coalitions as the order matters because the first person founds the coalition, right? You're going to say, I'm starting a coalition. And then who's going to join me? And player 3 joins me next, right? And then player 2 and then player 4, something like that. So I am the founding member and I have so many votes, right? If I have enough votes all by myself, I'm considered the pivotal player. Whoever is the person to put the vote total in the team over the quota is the pivotal player. So the person whose votes, yeah, the player whose votes put the team over the top. Put the team at or above the quota is the pivotal player. So you see them written out in order and you add their votes up, and whoever puts the team at or above the quota is considered pivotal. So every sequential coalition just has one pivotal player. So this is a little different from Banzhaf, where you could have more than one critical player in a team. Every sequential coalition has exactly one pivotal player. Okay, so here's sort of the general method. You're going to list all the sequential coalitions, find the pivotal player in each, and then we do the exact same thing we did in Banzhaf. Add up the total number of circles you made, and then say, well, player 1 has so many of those circles, player 2 has so many of those circles. So here's a weighted voting system: 5, 3, 2, 1, 1. And to save some time, I wrote out all 24 sequential coalitions because there are 4 players. There are going to be 24 sequential coalitions. Wrote them all out for you. I also put a bunch of these blank guys at the end of your this class that you can use when you're doing your homework, so you don't have to write these all out. And I'll never give you more than 4 players. 3 players, there's only 6, so you can write them out without too much trouble. 4 players, you have some blank ones of these. On a test, I'll either give you 3 players or I'll give you 4 players and give you this. Okay, so each of these coalitions, each of these sequential coalitions has one pivotal player. We have to figure out who it is. So what I do is I say, okay, well, my quota is 5. And you start on the left and you say player 1 has 3 votes. Player 2 has 2, 1, 1. You add from left to right, and whichever player gets you at or above the quota is pivotal. So we start with 3, we add the 2, and we've got 5. That puts us at the quota. Player 2 is the pivotal player here. So then I'll go to this one. Player 2, player 1, player 3, player 4. So player 2's got 2 votes. Player 1 has 3, 1, 1. So we start with player 2, not enough. Add player 1's votes. We have 5. Player 1's pivotal. Let's look at player 3, player 1, player 2, player 4. So this would be 1, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Player 3 has 1 vote, not enough. Add player 1's 3 votes, still not enough. Move to player 2. Now we're over the quota. Player 2 is pivotal in that case. At or above the quota. Yep. All right, so in your groups, finish going through, figure out who's pivotal in each of these 24 coalitions. So this is called the Shapley-Shubik Power Index, or SSPI for short. BPI is short for Banzhaf Power Index. Okay. So again, you could change these to percentages if you want. To change to percent, you just do the division, 14 divided by 24, and then change to a percent by multiplying by 100. So we get 58.3%, 58.33%. 6 out of 24, that's 25%. And 2 out of 24 is times 100, 8.33%. I just changed my fractions to percentages. Oh, you can leave them as fractions. Okay. So again, just like with Banzhaf, when you add all your fractions up, you should get 1, right? So I have 14 plus 6 is 20, 22, 24. So I have 24 24ths. When you add your percentages up, you should get 100. All right, so I'm not going to go back to this frontier power since we just spent half the class working on it. I want you to find the SSPI for this guy. Okay, so there's only 3 players, so you're going to have to write down the 6 sequential coalitions.